Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. Hong Kong Confidential is brought to you by Teresa's Turkish Towels. Teresa imports the finest 100% Turkish cotton towels that dry very quickly, making them perfect for Hong Kong's humid climate. Say goodbye to the traditional smelly and stinky towels and try the colourful and fresh selections available online or in Teresa's Wan Chai store. Use the promo code CONFIDENTIAL online or mention this podcast when you visit in person to receive $100 off your entire order when you order 2 or more towels. With 100% satisfaction guaranteed or your money back, the only thing you've got to lose are the musty smells that permeate traditional terry towels. Visit www.hkturkish.com in order to get the address and directions to Teresa's semi-hidden location. Today I'm here with Hazel. Thanks for joining me, Hazel. How are you?
Hi, Jules. I'm good, thanks.
So, Hazel, can you tell me a bit about your IVF journey and your choice to become a single parent?
I think it started with just a choice to become a parent. And when I was about 38, my mum passed away. And it really made me realise that life can just snap and, be gone. And so it made me sort of sit back and evaluate what were really the things that I really, really wanted from life. And being a parent and having a child was one of them. At the time, my partner wasn't into having children and probably wasn't the right partner anyway. And so that was really the start of the journey.
Had you always wanted to have children, or did it really dawn on you after your mum passed away that that's something that you wanted to do?
I think it had always been there subconsciously. I think really my mum passing away was what made me kind of realise, you got to do this. Because like I said, I was 38 at the time, so I'd probably had enough of living life, as it were, as a single non-parent, and decided, it was time to do it.
Did you have that thing that many women have where you think, oh, my biological clock is ticking, and that you realise that you perhaps didn't have that much time left to do it? Or was that something that hadn't crossed your mind at 38?
I think it was probably in the back of my mind, but it wasn't foremost in my mind. Yeah, it was certainly in the back of my mind.
Once you decided you wanted to have a child and you were 38 and you realised that your partner wasn't perhaps either the right one or he didn't want to have kids, did you then weigh up your options? And what were they?
Yeah, I weighed up my options. My partner and I had split up by that point. So the obvious one was, to meet somebody else, which is no mean feat.
It's very difficult in Hong Kong, isn't it? We could do like a whole series podcast on that.
Definitely. Yeah, so that was one of my options. And I started thinking about it and thinking, well, even if I did meet somebody, I didn't want to just rush straight into having kids. And that was a pretty harsh reality to put onto a new relationship as well. And at 38, 39 probably by this point, I kind of figured out I didn't have time to wait. So I decided over a period of time that my options were either meet somebody and have sex and have a baby straight away, or, adopt, or obviously go through IVF.
Did you know much about adoption and IVF?
No, I didn't know much at all.
Did you research both, or did you just immediately discount adoption and decide to do the IVF?
No. I researched both. I had a good friend who was gone down a similar journey. So she was a great resource and she gave me lots of pointers in what direction to go, where to look for the information. Yeah, what sort of more options were out there, because it's not just, I'll go for IVF. There's a whole slew of medical issues and things you have to get tested, donors, etc., where to do it. And the same with adoption, although in Hong Kong it's a fairly easy process.
Did your friend adopt or did she do IVF?
She did IVF.
Great. Tell me a little bit about the things you have to consider in the process for IVF.
Well, first of all, are you viable? So you have to go through all these tests to sort of assess, it's quite horrible, but you have to assess your own fertility. So there are different levels of hormones, which I can't remember now. But yeah, you basically have to go through this sort of barrage of tests. And I think I sort of started on the journey. I felt like it was a train ride. So I didn't even know if I was going to get to the eventual station at the end, but I knew I had to get on the train. So I didn't make any major decisions as in, yes, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. It was more, I'm going to ride the train and see how I feel along the journey. If I want to get off at the third station rather than the end station, that's fine.
That's such a great analogy. That's a really good way of looking at it. It makes sense. I guess that makes it more manageable and less frightening.
Much less frightening and much more manageable. So each stage was very much a station. So like I said, I started it with just the barrage of tests. And then when that came back that, yes, I was still a viable mother, then, so the next stage, I guess, was a much bigger station. That was actually starting to look at donors. And within that, there also comes a huge decision. Are you going to use a donor from a donor site, or are you going to ask a friend?
And what were your considerations? Did you think about asking a friend?
Yeah, I definitely, it's a lot easier. Well, technically it's a lot easier. Actually, it's not. Yeah, I did think about asking friends. I guess there was nobody that really fitted the bill. And I think for me, having started this as an independent woman, to be tied to somebody who I didn't want to marry and didn't want to be in a relationship with in that way, I just could foresee a lot of issues coming up as the child grew, whether they would want to have certain rights and access to the child. And it just seemed messy to me.
Yeah, opening up a bit of a minefield that you didn't know what was going to come.
Yeah.
Whereas
exactly.
I guess if you choose the donor route, you've got more control over it.
It was my journey.
Yes.
It was my journey. It wasn't anybody else's. And I think that was, in the end, which may sound a bit selfish, because obviously I had to weigh up my future child's feelings about having a father. But within that, if that all went pear-shaped as well, then the person wanted to be in my child's life and then didn't want to be in my child's life, or just turned out, it just all seemed messy.
Yeah.
So that basically helped me make my decision as to whether I used a donor through a donor company or whether I used a friend.
Right. So then you decided to go with the donor company. And what sort of different options are there within that concept?
Well, your main one, I think, to start with is whether you have an anonymous donor or a non-anonymous donor. So an anonymous donor, you can never, or the child can never, ever have access to that person's contact details. With a non-anonymous donor, once the child reaches 18, she is allowed to have access to that person's contact details, which to me felt like that's the least I could do.
When, why did you feel that was the best option?
First of all, medically. If anything happened in that child's life, then if there was any, because, these donors are screened for as much as they can be screened for, but, there are genetic mutations that come out all the time. You just never know. And so I felt that at least if we had, or she or he had contact with the donor or potential contact, then if there was something medical that happened, then at least we've got that route is open. I did a lot of research around donor-conceived children and how they felt about their donors. From the interviews and the papers that I could find, most of the kids weren't looking for a father figure. They had, throughout their lives, whether they had an adoptive father or whether they didn't have a father, none of them seemed to be desiring a father in their lives by the time they got to 18. But they were very curious, where did my nose come from? What is my family traits? And a lot of them didn't ever contact that person, but just to have that option seemed to give them peace of mind. And so I thought, who am I to deny that?
Yeah. Once you decided that you're going to go with an open donor, is that what it's called?
No, non-anonymous.
Non-anonymous donor. How did you then go about it? What did you do?
Literally?
Yeah. How did you find that donor?
Well, I used the same company that my friend that I mentioned had used.
Is that a company in the US?
Yes. They also have a branch in Sweden, I think. Yeah, I think they have a branch in Sweden as well.
So what do you do? Is it like dating profiles? Like, do you go
literally.
Through...
I sat in my flat and went through profiles of people, and you put your filters in. So like I said, non-anonymous and anonymous are the main ones. So you start off with, say, an age bracket, and then once you put in non-anonymous, it brings it down from like 300 to about 10.
Really? What?
Really,
so most
really,
donors
really
want to be anonymous?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So it really, really cut it down. So once I got to that, then race obviously was a filter, age.
Employment or education?
Yeah, I think education level was a filter.
Height?
I don't remember if that was a filter or not.
That's my issue.
But being a short ass, it wouldn't be an issue for me.
That's my issue. Forget that. Strike that. Okay, what were some of your filters? Will you tell me?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay,
so
cool.
My fields were race, I think or ethnicity, was a big one for me. Because I felt at the time that I was already bringing a child potentially into the world who would have one parent, which, although it's very sort of recognized these days as not anything shocking, it's still something different. And I sort of thought about it and I thought, well, if I also have a donor who is not Caucasian, which I am, it's just going to open that child up to more questions, more and more questions. So if the child looks like me, as in is Caucasian, a lot less people are going to sort of say, just going to ask questions. And I thought that was probably the best way to go, was to make us not sort of blend in, because, we don't want to necessarily blend in, but just to be
cut from the same cloth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that makes sense. So it's not a racist thing. It's just more
not at all.
Yeah,
no, it was
more
purely
practical.
Yeah. No, there was nothing racist about it. It was purely a practical point of view.
And to lessen the interest and the questions about where she's come from and make things more complicated for her to explain it.
Yeah, I think so. And just for her or she, he, whatever it landed up being.
We know it's a girl. We know it's a girl, so yeah.
Yeah, I think really just to sort of, minimise the amount of difficulties that child potentially faced in her life due to the decisions that I was making.
Great. So you picked your donor. He's white. What else was going on with him? Education level,
definitely, yeah. Had he been to university? I think you even can choose the grades that he got.
Oh, really?
I think so. I seem to remember.
So what did your daughter's donor do at university? What did he study,
did an arts degree. He was in film and producing.
Oh, cool. So he's creative.
Yeah, he was creative.
Are you seeing any creative signs in your daughter?
No, not yet.
Okay.
She definitely inherited my side. So definitely.
For our listeners out there, your daughter's now 6, is that right?
6.5, yes.
6.5, okay,
yes.
Cool. And how old was he?
Ooh. Early
he was
20s.
younger, much younger, wasn't he?
Definitely younger than me. And for anybody thinking of doing this journey, I definitely choose somebody who's considerably younger than you, just because your chances, if you're doing it later on in life, just fertility-wise, your chances of conception are far, far higher if one of the parties is younger.
Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
Even so younger sperm has more chance of actually
penetrating that tough old egg.
Right.
Yes, basically.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's why you chose a younger donor. Or did you think...
I don't think I really knew about that at the time.
Oh, okay.
I think I just happened to choose a younger donor.
Right.
And I imagine probably most of them on there are younger. There were other things in the profile. The profile was quite in-depth. They had questions that they had to ask. Things like, what are your favourite memories from family holidays? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. What else was there?
So in a way you could get to know
You got to know quite a lot about him, yes. You got to know what did he think his strengths were, what did he think his weaknesses were.
Oh, can you remember them?
His
That's
weaknesses,
so interesting.
yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah.
His weaknesses were that he felt that when he got involved in a project, he was fully in the project, and he was married actually, and his wife would say something to him and he wouldn't even hear. He would get so engrossed into what he was doing. So that was what he put as one of his weaknesses, I think, because obviously maybe it meant communication with his wife wasn't so good.
Yeah.
Strengths. God, what did he say? Strengths. That's terrible. I can't remember.
I thought you might have done a bit of like swashing up.
Sorry.
I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. But they're obviously positive strengths.
Yes, they're all positive
chose
strengths.
him.
Yeah, definitely.
This is complete speculation, but why would a married guy be putting his sperm on a donation site? Is it because he gets paid?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
It is. And he wanted to go on and do further studies.
To fund his education.
I don't know how much he got paid for it, but yeah. Interestingly, there was another donor who I would have really liked to use. His reasons for donating were that he was a firefighter in New York. He endangered his life on a regular basis. It was around about the time of post 9/11. And he wanted to help the world to keep on procreating. And he felt that if he could donate his sperm, then at least he would have contributed to humanity, I suppose.
Oh, that's nice. And how come you didn't choose him?
There's a thing called CMC. or CMC, I think, cytomegalovirus, something like that. It's basically something that we're either positive or negative. It's not it's not an STD. It's something, but it is very widely transmitted. I was negative and he was positive, which to us as adults has absolutely no relevance whatsoever. You could catch it from a kid not having washed his hands well enough. But to an unborn child, if the infection gets across the placenta, I guess, then it can have issues. So anyway, I was advised to choose a donor who was negative, because I was negative. And unfortunately, he was positive. So
so you had to bin the firefighter.
I had to bin the firefighter. I know, it was a real shame because I would have liked him. But
you went with the creative instead.
I went with the creative filmmaker, yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
After you had decided on your donor, what was then the process?
Sit and panic for a little while. And think,
Did you?
Oh my God, what have I done?
Did you really almost bail out at any time during this, or was it just like you were set on your path on that train?
I was on my train.
But you were sometimes looking out the window going,
it went on the sidings for a little while every now and again. I mean, even just the fact of actually, oh my God, I'm sitting here pressing the order button. I'm putting my credit card details in here to order some sperm.
I know.
I'm ordering sperm.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
It is the most bizarre thing, sitting in your flat, on your sofa thinking, I'm ordering the potential father of my potential unborn child.
Yeah, freaky.
On a website.
Freaky.
This
and
is
as a single mother, as a single woman.
Yes, as a single woman, yeah. Which in a way was very empowering as well. Very, very empowering.
How so?
Just, I mean, there are many different levels to it. But just the fact that the technology is out there that, we don't have to be dependent on a man. And quite frankly, at that point, there were no men who were coming up to scratch, who I wanted them to be a father. And I felt I could do a better job just on my own.
Yeah.
So it was very empowering to have the ability to take that step and to create my own family.
Good for you. So once you put your credit card in and ordered the sperm, did it just get posted to you or what?
Remember the sequence of events now? No, I think you purchase it, and then when you have located your clinic that you're going to go and do the treatment through, then it gets posted from there to the clinic.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
What was your process then? Because you're in Hong Kong, and did you choose to do IVF in Hong Kong? Or
No,
were you able? You can't, can you? Because you're a single mother.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you're a couple who has been living together for 10 years but never got married and have already had 5 kids, you still cannot do IVF in Hong Kong.
Oh, my God.
You have to have a marriage certificate.
Hong Kong is so backwards in some ways, isn't it?
So forward in some ways,
yes.
and so backwards in other ways.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Its transport system's very good.
Yes, just not its fertility systems. Although its fertility system's very good, but its access to freedom for all is not.
Right.
It's not inclusive.
So what were your options there then? Did you think about UK? Did you think about other places in Asia? What did you consider?
Yeah, I mean, UK would have been the obvious one. You can also go to Sweden. Really, with the friend who'd already told me all the stuff, I pretty much followed her journey. It was the easiest thing. I thought about the UK, but you don't know how many times you're going to have to go, and that gets expensive. It's time off work,
so expensive,
etc. So Bangkok was the obvious place.
Because Bangkok's very close. It's only 2.5 hours away by flight. And it's very cheap to get on a flight. And it's very easy to get it immediately, isn't it? You could go, I'm ovulating, I'm off.
Well, that's basically what you have to do.
Right. Okay, cool.
The other thing was that the lady, again, who'd given me all the information, she had a contact in Bangkok who basically was a doer in terms of fertility.
What does that mean?
So she would meet you at the airport. She would take you to your hotel. She would pick you up to go to your appointments. She would liaise between the doctor and you or anybody in the clinic. The doctor obviously spoke English, so did most of the nurses, but not everybody did. So if there were ever any problems, she was there to basically translate, smooth it through. She also had contacts at customs, so she could ship the sperm through, and that was much easier, not having to deal with getting sperm in and out of Bangkok customs. Was a huge, huge help.
Wow, what an amazing concept. So you basically had an agent. And did you know that's something you needed to do, or did you only know that because your friend had gone through it?
Yeah.
And you used her doer?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Cool.
And she was lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely lady. Really nice.
So you had to pay her separately to all the rest of your costs?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Can I ask if she was expensive? You don't have to tell me what you paid, but was it...
She wasn't expensive, no.
Yes, see, that's the other beauty of Asia,
Bangkok.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Bangkok. You can get some good services in Bangkok for quite cheap.
That's the thing, she was amazing. I mean, like I said, she literally would pick me up from the airport every step of the way and really didn't charge very much at all. She should have been charging a lot more, put it that way.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
once you'd organised your clinic and you'd got your doer and you'd got your sperm winging its way to Bangkok, did you have to then have any sort of treatment from a doctor here in Hong Kong before you left? Tell me about that. Yeah. What was that?
Well, before that, there were also the options. You don't have to go straight for IVF. IVF is like big...
You can have IUI, can't you?
Right. Exactly. So I consulted one doctor in Hong Kong and he sort of laid out the options. And yes, you're right, there's IUI and IVF. And there's
Do we remember what IUI stands for?
Intrauterine insemination.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so IUI is intrauterine. So basically it's a professional turkey-based.
Okay. To put it bluntly. So instead of getting your friend and doing it yourself at home.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit more accurate and slightly more hygienic.
Okay.
And hopefully more professional.
Brilliant. Did you do that?
So I did IUI first.
With your donor sperm?
Yeah, with my donor sperm.
Flung a bit to Hong Kong and a bit to Bangkok?
No. It's still done in Bangkok. It's still a medical procedure.
Right, gotcha. Okay.
So I decided, first of all, to do IUI. IVF seemed huge. It seemed scary. It seemed huge. And it's
also much more costly than IUI, isn't it? Much
more costly, yeah. So I plumped for IUI to start with. You still have to do a lot of the same prep work. So you have to take medication in Hong Kong. You have to go and have ultrasound scans. They have to check the stage of the monthly cycle of where your ovaries are. They stimulate the ovaries. Oh, is that with IVF? I can't remember.
No, I think they do. They do that follicle stimulation thing.
Exactly. Follicle stimulation.
We're so medically skilled here.
Exactly. They stimulate those things.
Somehow. Anyway.
So basically you go, you have this medication that stimulates the follicles to grow, then you have to go and have them measured. And they also look at the thickness of the lining of the uterus, because if fertilization does occur, then you need to have a certain thickness in order for the
egg to implant.
Is it called an egg or a zygote at that point? Anyway, the egg.
It's an embryo.
The embryo.
Oh, no, that's when... Oh.
Anyway, the thing.
Oh, we should get back on Google.
To implant into the lining of the womb, lining of the uterus.
Okay.
So you have all this stuff checked. And then at a certain point, off you go, you're ready. And you go off to Bangkok and you have the sperm injected.
Right.
And then you basically just go home again.
And you've got to time that when you're ovulating, and your doctor will confirm that that's when you've got to go, and then you go. And you've got a window of about 5 days when you ovulate, have you, to inseminate?
To be honest with you, with the IUI, I really can't remember exactly what the process was. That one didn't work, so I guess it kind of just went out of my head. IVF is much more medication. With the IVF, I'm pretty sure with the IUI, there's not much. There's a bit of stimulation, but that's it.
Okay, and then did you just do that once and it didn't work at all?
Yeah, so I did it once. It didn't work, and I came back and I thought, right, okay, that didn't work. What are my options? And I actually took a bit of time off because it had been quite stressful.
I'm sure.
In a fun way, but it had definitely been stressful.
Yeah, because you've got to get time off work, you've got to head over to Bangkok, you've got to have the hormones.
And just all the decisions of, am I actually doing this?
Yeah, and you're doing it all on your own. Yeah, a lot of people who do it have a partner to talk to and encourage them and, you know, pick them up if they're feeling down. And you had to rely more on your friends for that, didn't you?
Yeah, and I had a great friend who came with me both times.
Cool.
And who was also there at the birth as well.
Good for her.
Actually, not quite there, but yeah. Anyway.
But she was around for a lot of the journey. Yeah, so she was really like your partner, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was like, definitely a partner in crime. So the IUI, I think you pretty much take a few drugs and then off you go, and it's just timed with Mother Nature. With IVF, it's much, much more controlled. So you definitely take, in the lead up to it, you take all these drugs to hyperstimulate the follicles, because with IVF, they have to take the eggs out. So they want as many eggs as they can possibly get. So that's why they hyperstimulate for that, or they stimulate. You have to do a trigger shot.
What's that?
So it's basically an injection that you have to give yourself.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly, which is another thing. So once the doctor, obviously, I think you go in like almost on a daily basis to get checked. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? And when they deem the follicles and the eggs, I guess, to be a big enough size, then you get this trigger shot. And the reason you do it yourself is because it's very much timed. So mine was 9:00 at night. So there was no way I could be in the clinic to get it done. So you sit there again in your lounge all by yourself.
Where did you have to put the injection? In your tummy.
Yeah. So lucky enough, there's enough fat there.
Oh, yeah.
So I was able to grab a little bit.
Do you know what? I had to give an injection into a tummy of a colleague when he injured his knee in Switzerland on a ski trip.
Oh, really?
And then he had to fly. So I had to inject him with an anticoagulant. I love the thought of myself being a doctor.
Well, I wasn't so keen on it, so I was doing it myself.
Yeah.
But it was
You
okay.
should have called me.
I know, I should have
come to do it. Yeah. I'm experienced.
So I think once you do the trigger shot, you've got 36 hours to be in the clinic having the eggs retrieved. So that basically meant, and you don't know when that's going to be. So basically the day that they said to me, right, 9:00 tonight, you do the trigger shot, I also had to get onto the airlines and say, I need a plane. I need a plane.
Yeah. Do you know who I am?
So, I need a plane. Luckily, AirAsia were brilliant.
You had to go the next day. Did you have to say, I'm going for IVF and this is crucial?
No,
because there's so many flights to Bangers that it's fine, isn't it?
Exactly. In AirAsia, you could just get on a plane like 5 minutes
Great,
ago.
but what about work? Did you have to have them already primed to say, at some point, I'm going to have to just go?
I think I had. I think I'd already kind of, figured it out a little bit. Yeah, so basically did the trigger shot, jumped on the plane with my friend the next day, got picked up by the lady at the airport, went to the clinic, I guess did some more monitoring, etc. And when they, said, right, okay, this is the time, you go in and you have your eggs retrieved.
Right, now are you conscious or under anaesthetic?
I was out of it.
Okay.
You can be conscious, I believe, but no thanks. I was out, definitely.
Yeah.
The clinic was great. It was very professional. It was very clean. It was everything you would want from a medical facility.
Oh, so you weren't like at the Bumrungrad Hospital or anything? No. You were just at a fertility clinic in Bangkok?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Recommended by your friend?
Recommended. I'd also researched it. They have a sister clinic in Sydney.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I felt very comfortable.
Cool.
And like I said, it was the same one that my friend had been to. So,
just before we get on to your egg retrieval, can I ask whether the hormones that you had in preparation, did they make you change your behaviour, your emotions and make you crazy, or was it pretty easy? Because I know for some people that can be tough, can't it?
Yeah, it didn't affect me too much. I had boobs the size of watermelons.
Bonus.
Ginormous. Did it affect me? I don't think it affected me that much. I mean, maybe I was a bit emotional, but I don't remember being crazy.
Psycho. Okay.
No,
Cool.
Definitely not. And I think that was something in my favour being a single woman at that point. Again, it was a train. I was on my journey. At that point, although I knew what I was going to do, I wasn't going thinking, I hope it works. Although I did hope it worked, it was still part of just this journey I was on. And I didn't have somebody else's desires and wishes and hopes on my shoulders.
Yeah.
It was just me. If it worked, fantastic. That was the goal. If it didn't, I tried. I'd done everything I possibly could. And I was happy to live with that.
So you had quite a pragmatic approach, which I think for some people can be very difficult, especially if you are married and you've been trying for years, or you've only got a certain amount of money, or there's lots of reasons why it can be there can be huge stress and pressure.
Which and also has an effect on the outcome.
Yes, it can do, can't it?
Can do, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I don't know. Maybe I was just really lucky.
But you feel that your pragmatic, chilled-out approach helped you actually conceive and have the baby.
Yeah, I think so.
I know. Well, we love that. When you had the egg retrieval that first time, how many eggs did they get?
From memory, I think 8.
And what's a successful number and what's a fairly unsuccessful number? Well, I guess 0 is unsuccessful. Do you know what an average number is?
I don't know. I mean, I think some people get like 20. Some people get loads and loads and loads. I mean, obviously it is how many you get, but it's how viable are those eggs.
How viable were your 8?
So out of 8, 4 were viable.
Oh, okay. Did that mean then in this cycle of IVF you had 4 shots at it?
I got 4 embryos that were viable.
Because if you had to get more eggs retrieved, that's a whole new cycle of IVF, isn't it? So you potentially had 4 goes.
Yes.
Obviously, each time you go back is going to cost you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, then how did you decide how many embryos to implant? Because sometimes they offer you 2 or 3, don't they? Or
they
1.
do. I'd already spoken to my doctor in Hong Kong, who I'd actually changed doctors by this point because the first one was not very supportive.
Why is that? Because you were single?
Yeah, I think so.
I knew it.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God,
dastardly. I shan't mention his name.
No.
He helped me with the IUI, but when he was constantly questioning and saying, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, I am, whatever it was by that point, 39, 40. I'm sitting in your office. I've come back numerous times. I've put myself through numerous tests. I'm putting up this amount of money. Yes, I want to do this. Anyway, he wasn't very supportive. And so when the IUI didn't work, I changed doctors to a fabulous doctor who was basically like, you can do IUI another 10 times and you might get pregnant, but you probably won't. Just go for the IVF.
Great. And how did you find this really good doctor?
Friend recommendation, but a friend who just happened to have had children with it. Sorry, not had children with it. She hadn't destroyed that. She had children with her husband. But she thought he was great, and he happened to be one of the top IVF doctors in Hong Kong.
That's brilliant. Okay. This doctor was really encouraging, and he had spoken to you about the number of eggs you should implant. What was his recommendation?
He'd said 2.
Okay, so
and that was also the clinic in Bangkok also were 2. They weren't very keen on putting multiple, so they basically said 2.
Yes, you didn't want to do a Kate What's-Her-Face who had 8 kids.
Whatever, plus 8. No, thank you. No, I mean, of course, I weighed it up, and, the prospect of having twins was like, well...
Yeah, manageable, isn't it? Especially because in Hong Kong we do have helpers.
Exactly. It would have been manageable. It would have been hard, but it would have been manageable.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known any different.
Yeah.
And also, the doctor in Hong Kong, his theory was that if there are 2 embryos in there together, that boosts the hormones that make the conception viable.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense
or
too.
implantation, I guess. Because
Great.
conception's already happened.
Yeah.
In a dish.
Yes, in a petri dish.
dish.
You implanted 2.
Uh-huh.
And this is your first attempt at IVF. And so you've got 2 eggs implanted, and then you and your friend come back to Hong Kong.
Yeah, you're supposed to go and, be quiet and not do anything for a couple of days. Don't go in a swimming pool. Don't get too hot. But it was Bangkok.
Yeah.
So obviously I got hot.
And did you go in a swimming pool?
I think I might have done, yeah.
You rebel.
I can't really remember, but we definitely flew. I think the advice was to fly a couple of days later, but I had to get back to work. So we pretty much jumped on a plane and came back. As we came through the airport, in Bangkok airport, there's like many, there's a fast track for, I guess it must be diplomats or whoever, and pregnant women. So
did you try it?
I put my hand up and said, I'm pregnant. They said, oh, this way, madam.
Oh, brilliant.
And through I went. And luckily I was pregnant, although at the time I didn't know.
That's brilliant. That's hilarious.
That's my positive thinking.
So you got back to Hong Kong, and then how are you feeling? Like, did you keep thinking
had giant boobs?
And did you keep thinking, oh my God, I feel like pickles and ice cream. I must be pregnant, or
no, I didn't.
Did you have any feelings or any inkling, or
no? The only thing I had was just the huge boobs still,
right?
But obviously that I'd had them
beforehand,
so that was no indication whatsoever. I think I don't remember. I think I just went back into real life and
got on with it.
Yeah. And
that fits with your pragmatic, practical approach beforehand, doesn't it? And then how long after you had the implantation were you able to test for pregnancy?
I feel it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because on those websites, it's always the 2WW, the 2-week wait.
Yes, right. Okay.
Yeah, so I think it was 2 weeks.
And then did you just do your own home pregnancy test?
No, I wasn't brave enough.
Oh, that's hilarious. So what did you do?
I left it. By that point, I was like, I've done enough. I'll just leave it to the professionals. So I had to go and have a blood test.
And then how long did that take to come back? A few days? Or was it immediate?
No, it's not immediate.
No.
I want to say maybe the next day.
Okay. Give me the story of how you found out. Were you on your own, or did your support person go with you?
No. No, they called me. So I was actually on the side of a cricket pitch working. Yeah,
okay. She's a water runner. Brilliant. So
I was in the middle of discussing how a man had accidentally hurt his neck and discussing his treatment options when I got a phone call, and I said, I'm sorry, actually, I'm expecting a really important phone call. And
because you're broken.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that, you're paralyzed is fine. Which he wasn't, I'd like to say.
Yeah. She's joking. Please, no complaints.
So, anyway, so I took the phone call and they said, congratulations, you're pregnant. And I kind of said, pardon? Are you kidding? Are you real? And
how did that feel?
Crazy, weird, amazing.
Were you just jubilant?
I was
so excited?
Over the moon, but at the same time quite shocked.
Yeah?
I think
didn't expect it on the first one?
No, I think after having the IUI that hadn't worked, I hadn't really... Yeah, I think I hadn't let myself go there. So, I really didn't believe
And so was the guy with the shoulder the first person?
He was the first person to know.
Gorgeous.
I think whatever his name was from the Hong Kong cricket team was the first person to know. So it was quite funny, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But it was jubilation and complete and utter disbelief. And I remember carrying on with this man's treatment program and just thinking, oh my God, holy crap, oh my God, oh my God, I'm pregnant.
Yeah, that's exciting. How fantastic. And
so
then did you text friends and family and stuff?
No memory whatsoever. I'm sure.
Oh, you
I'm
don't
sure
know.
I
Yeah,
did, but
yeah.
no, I didn't. I carried on working for the rest of the day,
Oh, right.
and then at some point must have started texting people. But I think I let the news just sink in, and yeah.
And then were you afraid of losing the baby? Like, did that come into your mind? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
Did you think,
Definitely.
oh my God, now I've got to like not run anywhere and
Oh,
can't lift anything heavy? Or
yeah, no, because that weekend, yeah, that's right. So that must have been during the week, and then that weekend, I was doing a tennis tournament in Macau.
playing?
No.
Oh.
If you've ever seen me play tennis, you would know definitely not.
Sorry, she was working. She's working at a tennis tournament in Macau.
Doing the water again.
Yeah.
So I had to go to a tennis tournament in Macau with my boss. And it was just me and my boss, who obviously I didn't want to tell at that point. But we had to lug all the equipment, like the tables, the kit bags, all this stuff. So I told him I had a bag.
Did you?
Which, as a physio, he probably looked at me and went, no, you don't.
Yeah, but didn't he already know that you'd been to Bangkok?
No, I don't think I told him why I was going to Bangkok.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, I can't have done, because I definitely didn't tell him that weekend.
Right. Okay.
And then, of course, we had to go out to these buffet lunches where they had these huge salad thingies, which were just sitting out in the open.
You don't want salmonella.
Salmonella. So I had to come up with all these excuses why I wasn't eating salad or blue cheese.
Yeah, or prawns.
Or prawns or sushi, which all just happened to be on the menu that night. And his wife was there, and I'm sure she knew.
Right.
She kept giving me funny looks, but of course didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So no. But at that point, it was more just oh, what do I do? I'm not supposed to do that. Okay, I won't do that.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, it still wasn't real at that point.
Right.
But I do remember, listeners, I apologise if this is too much information. I do remember that morning waking up and getting out of bed, and my bosoms were even larger and felt like they were just made out of concrete. You know what that feels like.
Yes, they're like
oh my God.
I used to call them brick tits.
Yes, exactly.
They're
That was the
hard
morning
as
of the brick
rocks.
tits.
Yeah.
In the, what's it called?
The Venetian?
Yes.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay. Right, so you're posh.
That was on the Venetian. Anyway, so that was what happened after that.
Then I guess you've got, what?
So I'm going to say about worrying about losing the child. So I think as the pregnancy went on within that first trimester, I didn't have any morning sickness, basically had no symptoms whatsoever other than brick tits. And then at some point, something that nobody tells you is your brick tits disappear, and it's okay. Nobody had told me that. So, of course, I woke up one morning and
They've gone down. They were softer.
Oh, my God, they've gone. What does that mean? And I would find myself walking down the street kind of going like this. Going, no, still a bit there. Yeah, no, it must be okay.
For the listeners out there, she was squashing her arms into her boobs as she walks. Brilliant.
Anyway, yeah. So there were obviously worries, but once I got past that first trimester, no, I wasn't worried. I was very confident then.
Kind of keep it. Now, this is a question for any pregnant woman. Some people tell people immediately. That was me. Other people...
Really, Jules?
Yeah, surprise, surprise. Other people like to wait till they're 12 weeks in before they tell anybody in case things go wrong. What was your philosophy on that?
I told my closest friends. My philosophy was, if it didn't work and I needed support, I needed to have told people to start with. There's nothing worse than having to say to people, I need your support, I need to cry on your shoulder, and they say, why?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So to have got it out there and told my close friends was more important to me.
Yeah.
And I was happy to share the news. So
yeah, that was exactly my philosophy as well. Yeah. And for other people, that's not how they feel, and that's perfectly legitimate as well. Yeah. We're not sort of passing judgment on anyone who wants to wait.
In terms of people I didn't know very well, especially because of my situation, it would have been a big surprise to a lot of people. And work as well. I didn't tell work until somebody noticed.
Right, one of the women.
Yes. You shouldn't wear that stripy jumper. It makes you look fat. Hey, there's a reason for that.
Brilliant. Did you feel really lucky that you'd only been through one IUI and one IVF and you were 40 and that you conceived?
I was 41 by this point.
41?
Yes, very, very lucky. Very lucky.
But statistically, you were lucky, weren't you? Like a lot of people do have to try many times, particularly at that age, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What was your pregnancy like?
Easy. Super, super easy. Like I said, I had no morning sickness. I was super tired in the first trimester. But I mean, other than that, yeah, it was ridiculously easy.
Cool. And then we get to the birth. And what happened with the birth? How did that go?
The birth was the complete opposite of my birth plan.
What was your birth plan?
My birth plan was I was going to stay where I live on this island and...
Call me and I was going to come into my
Exactly. Jules and my girlfriends were going to come round. We were going to watch movies and, have a girls' night. And when it got to be really bad, I was going to jump on the helicopter and then I would give birth, within about 2 hours after arriving.
Right. Lovely.
In reality, I spent 5 days in the hospital waiting until I could, I think it was 2 or 3 days until I could even be induced. And then I was induced. And then after 12 hours of fake labor, I had a C-section.
Oh, my gosh.
That was completely opposite.
Why were you in the hospital early before you were induced? Like, did you have preeclampsia or did something?
No. I was already at 42 weeks.
Oh, so you'd gone overtime.
Yeah,
so they're like, right,
already.
This baby's cooked. We've got to get it out.
Exactly. But she, the laid-back little chick that she is, she was quite happy in there.
Yeah. So how did you feel having to have a Caesar? Were you okay with that? Was it traumatic?
No, it wasn't traumatic. It was fine. Clearly nothing was going to happen. There was pretty much zilch dilation, despite 12 hours of chemically induced labor. So no, at that point, I was quite happy to wave my white flag and say, yeah, let's go for it. Let's have a C-section.
Get that baby out.
Yeah. It was midnight. It was time to go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. None of this staying up. That's for when you have the baby.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so then you gave birth and brought your little girl home.
Yep.
And now she's 6 years old. And how's life been as a single mum? Give me the positives and then the negatives.
Okay, the positives. I don't have to argue with anybody about training schedules, sleep schedules, nappies. I used to see couples at the taxi stand fighting over where the buggy went. Does it go in the boot? Does it go here? What about the baby? Blah, 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 blah. I don't have to worry about any of that. So in those times, it was extremely plain sailing. I was my own boss. I could decide, like I said, feeding schedules, everything, which was great. It took a lot of the stress out of it. I have a great relationship with my daughter. We're very close.
I think one of the things I notice is because you're an older mother, I think you're really, really dedicated and really involved and really really, into your child. Whereas me as a 23-year-old mother,
very different.
It was quite different.
Yeah.
I didn't have that same, or is it because what you went through to get the child or whatever? Like I just got accidentally pregnant and had a kid and it was like, oh God. And I was like 23 going on 15. And then you, an older woman, you'd made that choice, and I can see the difference in the parenting and just that sort of intensity or that commitment. But it could just be an age thing. I think maybe older parents are all like that, And when you're younger, you're a little more selfish. And when you're older, you're a little more selfless. And this is complete generalisation. So young mums out there, please don't think I'm judging you all because, of course, there are many parents that are completely dedicated and amazing. Exactly. We're talking about our own personal journeys here. Yeah. Other positives for your...
So specifically being a single parent.
Yeah. And you're just for your whole parenting journey, not even single.
Yeah, I was going to say, once you're over the actual journey of getting pregnant, even in the hospital, there wasn't one moment where I was made to feel different to any other woman who was in there. And I think also because I was in the local system, and so the husbands aren't allowed in for most of the time anyway. And when it was visiting hours, I had people like you and male and female friends
come and
visiting me constantly. So I don't think anybody even realised of the other women who were in there. And the doctors not once mentioned that. IVF wasn't even mentioned.
Oh, see, that's awesome. So they didn't judge you for being single. Did they judge you for being old? Like so often, that's the thing in Hong Kong, isn't it? That geriatric pregnancy in Hong Kong.
What is it called?
It's geriatric, isn't it?
Advanced maternal age.
I think, or geriatric, I think. Anyway, it's hilarious.
I think it's something called geriatric uterus or cervix, something like that. Another friend of mine who was a similar age who had a child asked the doctor why she landed up with a C-section, exactly the same as me, and he said, basically, you've got a really old uterus.
Oh. The bedside manner in Hong Kong can sometimes be a little odd. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a common thing.
I think it's a common.
Then what are the negatives of being a single mum, back to being a single mother?
Negatives of being a single mother. There are the times in the middle of the night when your child is spiking a 40-plus degree fever and you've got nobody to discuss it with. That's freaky, especially when they're little. If my daughter had that now, I would feel a lot more confident in what I was doing and how to react. But when you've got a little baby and they're spiking a really high fever, it can be quite scary, especially because of where we live.
Yes, because we live on a little island off Hong Kong and we've got to really get helicoptered and our ferries finish at 11:30 at night.
Yeah, so if it's past that point and you have that cutoff point where you think, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? And especially like, do I go and take that 11:30 ferry? Do I take this tiny, small, sick baby on a ferry all the way into Central, sit in the hospital, waiting, when probably just they need a Panadol and go to bed.
Yes.
So you have to kind of make that call. And there were a few times when the clinic on the island was fantastic. And the nurses really calmed me down and said, look, when did you give her the Panadol? Blah, 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 blah. Wait much more time. And every time they were spot on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's really good. So for
say.
the listeners out there, we live on a little island off Hong Kong, and we've got this kind of little clinic which has nurses on standby all the time, and the doctor just comes if called or, during working hours. Yeah. But you can't really get much action there. No. Yeah, there's not much they can do.
No. But for what I needed, they were great.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also, did you find it difficult for making decisions like which school to send her to and stuff like that? And what financially? Do you ever feel disgruntled that you don't have another income?
No, I mean, it'd be nice to have another income. That would be great.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. I think I'm lucky that I have quite a good job. And I feel financially secure enough that it's not too much of an option. Although that obviously did impact on schooling decisions, because schooling in Hong Kong is not cheap.
Oh, yes, it's very expensive.
Really not cheap. So any single parents who do want to send their children to international school, it's a big consideration. Definitely. Luckily for me, I've been in Hong Kong for a long time, and actually for my daughter to be assimilated into the local community and speak the local language was quite important for me. So I've chosen to send her to a local school, which is free. So
that's great. And also you speak Cantonese very well yourself, so it makes sense that you would want your daughter to speak it too.
Yeah, exactly.
And we do know other students or other young people who have gone through the primary school here on this island and grown up to be very successful, intelligent, capable. So it does appear that, it's not a negative thing for them to go to this school. Is she enjoying her school?
She loves it. Absolutely loves it.
That's great. Does she get loads of homework?
She gets homework. It's definitely more than, say, some of the international school kids, some I say. But yeah, she gets homework. It's intimidating, but now we've got used to it, and the kids are much more up to speed with their Cantonese and their Chinese writing and reading. It's okay.
Brilliant. How do you feel about the possibility of your daughter contacting the donor when she is older, now that she's 6?
My only worry about it is that we won't be able to contact him. Although we will be given the contact details by the company that I used, who's to say that the company goes out of business? Who's to say that there's a fire and all the computers get burnt and the main,
Oh, you don't have his details now?
I can't get access to it. She's the only one who can.
Right.
There is a register, etc., that you can be on, but it's all up there in the cloud. What if the cloud explodes?
We're showing our age here. I don't think that cloud will explode. That's hilarious.
But basically, what if the guy's moved and he hasn't updated his details? That is my main worry.
And then she'll be disappointed.
Exactly.
Can I ask whether she has asked you about her situation with having a father figure or a donor? Or have you been open with her about being a donor child?
Yes. So I made a decision to be very open with her from the very beginning. Making the decision and doing it are two different things. She first asked me when she was about 1.5, when she first really started making sentences. And her question was, Mummy, Peppa Pig has a daddy and some other character has a daddy and my friend Harrison has a daddy. Do I have a daddy?
How did you feel? Did your stomach drop? Were you like, this is too early?
Oh, crap. I'm ready, but I'm so not ready to answer this question.
What did you say?
No.
Oh, did you say no? You don't have a daddy.
Just say no.
No, that's it. Now get in the car.
Exactly.
Oh, we don't have cars.
We don't have cars. Get in the boat. No, I said that you have a different kind of daddy or father. It was very difficult to decide how to name this person.
Yes, I mean, I'm finding it difficult just in this interview.
Exactly,
I keep saying father, and it's really donor, isn't it? It's a donor because he's not in the father role. No. He's the biological father or the donor, isn't he?
Exactly. This was the difficulty because she was asking about a father or a daddy. She was asking about the person who plays with her friends at the playground. She was asking about Peppa Pig's dad who plays football in the back garden with her.
Yeah, and that could be asking. If you had a partner now, that could be that partner, couldn't it?
Exactly. So my answer had to be no, but of course I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to psychologically scar this child for life? So I basically said that she had a special kind of father called a donor father, and that he was somebody that we didn't know and that we'd never met him, but he was a very kind man who helped me to create her. Of course, by the time I said 3 words, she'd gone.
Right.
And she wasn't ready or even interested in what I had to say. But for me, I'd got the words out there and I'd got the word donor out there. And then periodically when she's asked over the years, it's a repetition with a little bit more information each time.
And is she fascinated with it? Is she upset? Okay.
She's fine
Does it
with
seem
it.
completely normal to her?
It seems completely normal to her, I think. But she has a wonderful godfather who has played that, I don't want to say father figure, but he's
been a constant in her life.
He's been a constant male person in her life who has done those things, goes to the playground with her, takes her for days out at Ocean Park, comes to her birthday parties and things. So we have been incredibly fortunate for her to have that. And I think that maybe has helped her in her acceptance of the fact that she doesn't have a father, but she has a very lovely uncle/godfather who, I think
were the
plays that
lines ever blurred with the godfather, whether he might be the father, or did she ever ask about that?
Yeah. No, she did, definitely. And I think she always knew, but she tried.
Oh,
she
right. So she wanted to
yes,
just,
exactly,
this would be very convenient if you could be my dad.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Because obviously at that age, she had no concept of actually what that meant biologically.
Yes. And did she ask you or did she ask him?
More me.
Right.
More me.
And what was your response there?
I was always very, very clear that he's not your father. He's your uncle, your godfather. He's a very special man, etc., etc., etc.
Right, cool. And kids are very accepting, aren't they? They just want to be asked. They just want to be given the information.
Mm-hmm.
So would your advice to anybody out there just to be pretty straight up with the child right from the beginning?
Definitely.
And that is actually the way to go, even though you might just simplify it when they're very little and, as you said, give them more information as they get older?
Yeah, definitely. I think from my point of view, to hide it from them is just going to be a whole lot more trouble in the future.
Oh, they could be very, very angry at 10 or 12 or whatever if they found out then and you hadn't told them.
She may still be very angry with me at 10 or 12. But at least I have laid the groundwork. It's something that it's seeped into her conscious being as she's grown. It's not something that's all of a sudden, bam, at 10. Yeah, actually, you had a sperm donor.
And I think it's really interesting. We live here in Hong Kong. We live in a very diverse community. It's very multicultural. There's loads of religions. There's loads of genders and sexualities and families.
And
so in some ways that's a bit of a bonus, isn't it? Because you've got your gay mums on Llama and you've got your single parents and you've got your mixed race families and you've got your adopted children. And there's a real mixture that's very evident. So do you think that helps?
I think it helps.
Or it might help later?
No, I think it helps. It's interesting that you say that. There are not that many single parents, actually.
Oh, just you and me?
Yeah, exactly. But your daughter is so much older that my daughter wouldn't see that.
Yes.
So actually, there are single parents, but not that many.
Right, that's interesting.
There are not that many.
So does she notice that or comment on that? Or do you think that's why the question comes from? Okay.
Yeah, because she couldn't see anybody else who had the same family as she did.
Right.
So at that point also I bought a really, really great book, which for anybody out there who's thinking of doing this, or is in that situation, even in a married couple, using a donor. It's by Todd Parr, and I think it's just called Families. He's got lots of books about it's okay to be different. The I Love You book.
The family book. There you go.
That's it.
Todd Parr, the family book.
Yeah, and this is great for anybody.
But gee, they look great. He's got Be Who You Are and it's okay to make mistakes and the underwear book.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, that's so cute.
He's got some great titles, but this one particularly, I also bought the I Love You book, which is another gorgeous book for anybody who's got kids. But the family book is great for any kind of family, and actually all families. Because it goes through, single parent families, 2 dad families, 2 mum families, every computation you can have, different ethnicities within a family, and it just normalizes it all. It just says these are all families.
That's so cool. Did she respond well to that book?
Yeah, she's always loved that book. And it was always good because we could, like you said, we had a little girl who lived behind us at that point who was adopted. So we could always say, oh, and that's like so-and-so who lives behind us. And this is like so-and-so. And this is like you. And remember those other people who are like us with just one parent? So that was really good. And I've actually given...
Does it have donor in there as well?
I can't remember. No, okay. I don't think so. I think it just has single parents.
Did you have any books specifically about donor?
I've got
eggs?
One, but it's not brilliant. There's not that much.
To be fair, 6 years in, there's probably more out there now. And getting books related to their situation can be really helpful, can't it?
It can be. I did have one. I didn't quite like the way that the author had portrayed some parts of it, so I would change the words to be a bit more.
Maybe you should write one, Hazel.
Maybe I should
in your spare time.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you whether you ever tried for a second child.
I did.
Oh, Can you tell me about that?
Well, basically, I had 2 embryos on freeze because I used the 2 first ones when I had my daughter. When I imagined my family, I must admit, I had always imagined a couple of kids. And so with these two on freeze, the options were either discard them, like literally,
throw them in the bin,
medically discard them, donate them, or donate them to science. And I struggled with that decision a lot. And I think because I'd always thought about having another kid, the obvious thing was, well, go again, give it a go. Let's see what Mother Nature stroke a little bit of intervention will do. So I did go again.
What age were you at this point? You were 43, weren't you, or 4?
No, I think I was at least 44.
44, right,
I think I was 44. So I actually went again twice, because when I went the first time, the doctor in Bangkok said, look, 1 or 2 embryos, how do you feel about having twins? Which obviously as a single parent with 1 child already, no.
Yeah.
I did not want twins. In hindsight, chances of it happening was so slim that maybe 2 embryos would have been better. But at the time I chose to do 1 embryo. And I can't remember which time worked. One time worked and I had a miscarriage, and the other time just didn't work.
Right.
But that was it. I felt like, right, I have exhausted all my resources for having a larger family in terms of naturally.
Yeah.
As in myself. And that was fine. I was ready to put that to bed at that point. Yeah.
And any regrets that you only have 1 child?
Yeah, I mean, I still think about adopting, but I think I probably won't.
Right, because by the time you got through it now, she'd be like 8.
Yeah, exactly.
And there'd be that big gap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you wish that you'd gone into adoption earlier?
I wish I'd gone into the whole thing earlier.
Ah, do
Definitely,
you?
yes.
In hindsight, when do you think would have been the right time for you to do it?
In hindsight, 36 is the figure that comes into my mind.
Right.
Just because that gives you time. I suppose 35. If you started at 35, 36, by the time you've gone through, I mean, it must have taken me about a year to actually get to the point of doing the IVF or doing the IUI. Just the whole process. So if you think you start at 36, that's 37, 38, child 2 years old at 40, you've still got a chance. Whereas child 2 years old at 44, you've got a lot less chance.
Yeah, there's a massive difference, isn't it, from 40 to 44 or 5?
Definitely.
And is there anything else you would do differently if you could do it all again, apart from maybe doing it a little earlier?
No.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't think so.
That's really cool.
Is there anything else I would do? No, I don't think so. No, I'm super happy with the way it's turned out.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I know that your mum passed away just before you went into this process. How has that felt for you, not having her as a part of your daughter's life? Is that something you think about, or is it just...
No, that's been hard, because obviously my daughter does have a much reduced family compared to the average family. And that is still an average family. So, yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard for me. I don't think for her, because she never knew my mum. I feel sad that my mum never got to know my daughter. But obviously for her, like I said, she
doesn't know anything different.
She doesn't know anything different. She doesn't, I mean, it's a bit like a father. But even less so, because she doesn't often see people with their grandparents.
It's not so in her face.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you ever find times where you wished you could have called her to ask her advice or have her support, especially when she was younger, or was that something that you were okay with? I was okay with it, but I think it must have, I don't remember it specifically, but I'm sure it crossed my mind, I wish I could have. Yeah, probably at those 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, exactly. With the spiking fever. What the hell do I do, Mum? Yeah. Do you ever find yourself sounding like your mum or being like your mum, and do you catch yourself as a mum now? Do you remind yourself of her at all? I'm sure I do. I can't think of it now, but I'm quite sure I do. Yeah. I'm quite sure. Things like, when I'm nagging my daughter to, brush her hair or have a shower or something like that. Yeah, I'm quite sure I do. Without necessarily revealing too much, can you tell me about the financial aspect of IVF? It's not cheap, but it's a lot cheaper in Bangkok than it is in Hong Kong, definitely. For me, the financial aspect was something that I, maybe being a bit of a control freak, I don't know. I definitely, in my decision-making to actually take the leap and get on the train, as it were, was that I had got myself to a point where I kind of mapped out roughly the expenses that I expected to incur. And then I'd spoken to friends who did have kids and just got a rough idea of what was their expenditure per month. Oh, that's very efficient. Yeah, it's very efficient. Yeah, well, I had a very efficient friend who knew. And I'd sort of looked at that and I was very confident and happy that I could cover that. Because one thing I was worried about going into it as a single parent, obviously, is financially it can be a huge burden. And I didn't know how I was going to be as a single parent. I had no idea at that point. And I kind of felt that to put myself in a situation where finance was an issue
would just be adding a whole level of stress that I really didn't want. That wasn't how I wanted my journey to be. So I definitely sort of mapped things out and made sure that I felt comfortable with at least the basics. You know, I wasn't mapping out, can I afford a university right now? I was mapping out the day-to-day stuff. Can I do this? So that was something that definitely, before I made that leap, I wanted to make sure I was comfortable with that.
Did that play into the fact that you didn't do another round after the failure with the 2 last eggs? Or was that really because of your age and you were being practical? It was because of my age, yeah. And I think I'd always said to myself, you know, I've done this one round, to start again and do a whole load of egg retrieval, all those drugs, etc., etc. No, I'd already decided that wasn't to be. I'd done enough. And the drugs are expensive. Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're very expensive. And I assigned myself a certain amount based on what friends had told me, and especially the friend who'd been through it, roughly what the total amount was. And I had that figure in my head. And I basically mentally put that aside and put it in my imaginary bank account somewhere. That was gone. I'd already spent it. So every time I signed that credit card slip, I didn't even look.
Right.
I just didn't.
So you're saying you spent more than you expected?
No, I pretty much spent what I expected, but just that I mentally assigned that money. So mentally it was gone from my bank account, even before I'd spent it, but it was mentally gone. So that when I signed those credit card receipts, it wasn't a stress. It was, I know that is part of that plan over there.
Oh, right, I've got it, yeah.
Yeah.
And IVF in Australia and the UK and some countries where you're a resident is free for the first one, isn't it? Do you know?
Yeah, I think on the NHS in the UK, there's certainly some free treatments.
Yeah, I think in Australia as well, but I'm not sure. So Google that too, folks.
Yes, everybody Google that.
And can we just say we are not doctors? So what advice would you give to any couples or single women who are thinking about doing IVF?
Gosh, I mean, my advice would be do it. Just do it. Just shit or get off the pot.
Shit or get off the pot. That's very British.
It's not. It comes from
what?
North America.
Oh, does it? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
where your donor sperm is from.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't the best thing. Yeah, so basically, if you've got to the point where you've thought about it seriously and you're umming and ahhing, just start it. Just do it.
Yeah. Don't leave it too late.
Don't leave it too late, because like I say, it took me a year to get to the point where I was actually doing anything that was irreversible, basically. Yeah. And so you've got to factor that in. And along that journey, along that train, if you, like I said, if you decide to get off at 3 stations before the end, well, that's fine. But you've made the journey. Whereas if you never get on the train, you never know.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Hazel. It's been a really, really interesting, hilarious discussion. It's been a lot of fun.
So good.
And I'm hoping, I hope it really does help people out there. I'm sure it will.
Cool. Thanks, Jules.
You're welcome.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.